You're sitting here trying to ask God for your word. Sometimes it's cute, sometimes it's super hashtag Instagrammable, and sometimes it's something like persevere, and you're just like, God, absolutely not.
Okay, one year he did give me persevere.
Stop.
He did, no, because when I first wrote it down, I wrote down perseverance, because that felt like it was already finished. And he got my attention, and he's like, that's not what I said. I was like, okay, what did you say? He said, persevere. It's a verb. It's an action. You have to do it. He gave me that word at a time that I already felt like I had done some persevering. Can we be done with this? Can I move on to can my word be abundance or $1 million or something?
Please just hold your breath. Every door looks better when you keep it closed. Keep your head down and don't watch your steps. No point in even trying now, just let it go. Maybe they will write the same for me. Maybe this was really just a dream. Don't wanna take that risk and try to see. A 9-to-5 will bring security, I'm sure, but I can guarantee you that's no way to live. Way to live. Promise that's no way to live. Way to live.
Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. It is 2026.
That's insane. Happy New Year, guys. You're still here.
You are. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, Prodigal Peas in a Pod. I'm Brooke Ackerman.
And I'm Denise Acosta.
It's lovely to see you all in this shiny new year.
It is. Welcome back.
For our first episode of 2026, we thought we would address the very popular topic, which we're not big fans, but the idea of resolutions at the beginning of the year.
Boo.
And if you do resolutions, good for you. But we're going to talk about a slightly different take on the idea. 'Cause if there's something wrong with this feeling of new year, start fresh, look for new things. I don't like that phrase, new year, new you, because...
New year, new me, who dis?
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. There's an indication of our age differences. Because I don't like the idea of new you, because I like me, I like you. I don't think we need to be new. We just let God continue to shape us. Mm-hmm. So in that vein, what we're going to talk about, rather than resolutions, is this idea of asking God for a word for the year.
I have only started doing that in the last 2 years, so this is year 3 of me doing that. But I also stopped doing resolutions many, many years ago. I couldn't quite figure out why I disliked them so much. Aside from seeing how many people would sign up for your gym memberships, and this is going to be our years when we get fit, and then everybody stops going at week 3. And some of you keep doing it. I'm not knocking everybody. These are not absolute statements that I'm making here. But we can agree that generally people fall off and don't stick with the habit. So it would grind my gears when it would come up, because I'm like, I don't know, I feel like we're setting ourselves up for failure. And so when I started doing the word, for me, it was, I didn't have such a deep understanding of the process or that it was a thing. It was more something I was like, maybe I can focus on doing something this year, or there would be a focus rather than going to the gym all the time or implementing some new routine into my day. I ended up picking my words. Are we going to talk about our words already, or are we going to do that later?
I was going to not do that yet.
Okay, I'll wait. I'll share with you guys when we get to that.
I don't know if I've ever done resolutions.
Ever?
I don't think I have. But I don't like that feeling. And the reason I would probably not have done it, because I don't remember any year of me thinking this is what I'm going to do. But I don't like that feeling of starting something and then not being able to stick with it, because then once upon a time I was very, very hard on myself. So that would have been me setting myself up for a frustrating experience of then criticizing myself for not following through if I didn't follow through.
I'm like that now. Before I started thousands of things, and they wouldn't get done. And I'm like, all right, next.
This is taking me back to, it was a very early episode of you making yourself a schedule when you were a little kid and not following it.
Yes. I the intentions were there, right? Like I wanted it, but real life me was like, nah. They took one look at that schedule that morning. They were like, nope.
Yeah, so the idea of asking God for a word for the year is that we are aligning ourselves with him and what he says is true about us rather than us manufacturing our own word or our own resolution. And I doubt that this originated with them, but the first time I heard this idea of asking God for a word for the year, you've heard me talk about them before. John and Stacy Eldridge and their ministries.
Hi, John and Stacy. I don't know you, but
you should know them.
I kind of know them.
They're lovely people. They really are. But yeah, their ministries, Wild at Heart and Captivating, that's where I first heard this idea. And once John and I, hi John, once we heard that idea, we latched on and went with it. And we have several years worth now of words for the year from God. And it's been a really fun experience, which we will give you details all about that a little later. We got to keep you hooked for a little bit until we tell you what our words were before. Yay. So why words for the year rather than resolutions? What you got, Denise?
So resolutions focus more on what? They're more behavior based, because if you're doing the gym, you're trying to do better, you're trying harder. And that's maybe why I didn't like it too, though. And I didn't have the language for all this stuff. So here's the thing that's cool about this episode, you guys, is even though I had done the word, and I'm only 2 years in for picking a word, and this is year 3, it was a new thing that I tried, but I didn't really have all the language for it. And a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about today was really cool in reviewing it, because I'm like, oh yeah, I could totally see that, or I could see how that showed up when I was doing it and things like that. And also not really knowing why I didn't like resolutions so much, aside from I thought not everybody would follow through with them anyway. And so yeah, most of the things that you end up hearing end up being things that are changing, and you attach it to your identity, right? Like, I need to make sure my body looks better. And most of the times it's not very healthy. We're not very kind to ourselves in stuff that we're doing. We're looking at areas where we're lacking or slacking, and then how do we make ourselves feel worse about it? I know, let's make a resolution about it and not follow through, and then feel far worse than how we started.
You're bringing more language to, I'm realizing that I had the experience of not liking resolutions, but I didn't have the words for it before, because you're right. Most of the time, if we make a resolution, it's because we don't like something about ourselves and we want to change that thing. But what we don't realize that we're doing is we're still keeping the problem the focus. So if I think I'm out of shape and I want to be in better shape, so I'm going to make a resolution to go to the gym, that's different than choosing to move my body to stay healthy. Because if it's, I hate the way I look and I need to lose weight, that's a negative focus. I'm keeping the problem of my ideas of me being overweight. That's still the focus. And that feels motivating for maybe a little bit of time, but we can't sustain that because we're criticizing ourselves, and that's not going to bring about healthy change. Whereas if you decide, if it's a resolution or whatever the reason is, that you want to go to the gym because you want to pay more attention to being healthy and choosing to take care of yourself, it's the same thing. You're going to the gym to get in better shape, but your mindset is totally different. And I don't think I was ever taught that more positive mindset. And so it all felt negative, but I didn't have the words for that.
It was also encouraged. I think society for a long time has really encouraged that idea of you're definitely not good enough, and you're whatever it is, body type or how you do your hair or your clothes. And so going on shifting our focus from the negative to something more positive. We're not saying you can't make going to the gym your focus. Right. Sometimes being healthy needs to be a thing that we focus on. But there's, how are we looking at it? How are we going about it? Are we forcing this gym thing that we hate? Is it something simple? This morning, instead of eating pizza, I had some fruit this time, and cool. I don't know, little things, focusing on why that even became a resolution for you. Where did that really come from? Is it from a part of you that hates yourself? Or is this something from a healthy place where you're trying to love yourself, not forcing yourself into it?
It's far more about perspective and mindset than it is the behavior or the thing that we're trying to focus on.
Yeah.
Because anything can be for a healthy reason, and we can take a healthy thing and turn it into something unhealthy.
Yeah. Yes, we can. Any healthy thing can be an idol. Yeah. Depends on where our heart is. Where's our heart posture? Which, by the way, it is 2026. Have you started reading your Bible? Please let me know in the comments. I hope that's a yes. Back to what we were talking about.
Denise, since you have done resolutions in the past, and if I did, I don't remember them. Isn't that funny?
I don't remember too much of mine either.
Do you remember how you felt and what you thought? And did the pressure of, I have to improve this about myself, did that have a negative effect?
It absolutely had a negative effect. It kept feeding into what I was already feeling about myself, which it wasn't good for a long time. So the first part of what you were saying, it's funny that you brought up the schedule because that's how I felt about my resolutions. I'd be like, yeah, this is what we're going to do. January looks like this. February looks like this. March looks like this. And then that's not what January, February, or March ended up looking like. And it was literally the exact same thing as if I was doing my schedules when I was 6. If only I had recognized that pattern, I would have known from then. But more on that. It focuses more on the negative for sure. It almost reinforces those negative things that you were thinking or feeling about yourself. And if we're so focused on that, we are blocking off anything that God's trying to do in us to get us to understand, learn, embrace what our true identity is. So that transformation that God is trying to do in us is all these resolutions end up becoming a distraction. If we're focusing on something more like a word, we are more open to receiving what God has to say to us through it, what we're going to be learning through the process of it. It shifts who is in control of it. Mm-hmm. The resolution is me. I'm the one who has to do this. It's all on me, 100%. I'm driving it. And if I don't get it, I have failed. If we're focusing on a word, a revelation that God has given us, this is a team thing. This is a new journey. This is a new area that we're going to learn about ourselves, that we're going to end up living out of. It's getting closer to what our true identity is. I feel like resolutions are a distraction to our transformation.
I feel like we need Alicia here to sing us a little riff about revelation versus resolution. I feel like she would have something there.
She would. She definitely would. We just keep her in the background and
she can pop up,
chime in every now and then.
Well, let's see if we can get her on retainer to do that for us. I'm sure she would have no objections. Sure, she's got lots of free time. So I like that you said that if resolutions are more me-focused and asking God for a word is him-focused. You're making me think of my friend Jenny. Hi, Jenny. I don't know if you listen to this.
Hi, Jenny.
Jenny would often, she's got a lovely Southern accent, and she would often go, "These are my receiving hands, Lord." And it's making me realize that that's our posture. That should be our posture all the time.
Ever since you first said that, because it was definitely on some episode, I say that sometimes too. I'll be praying "These are my receiving hands, Lord."
Yes. Yeah, so it's not about what do I have to try to manufacture, what do I need to try to create, what am I trying to produce. It's more a heart posture and a hand posture of what do you have for me this year, Lord. And that, I don't know, even saying that, I can feel my heart rate slow. It feels more peaceful than I have to, I need to, I got to go do, I have to. It's interesting that even saying that phrase brings a little bit more peace. I'm not striving. I'm just receiving whatever it is that God has already prepared for me. And we've talked a lot about conversational relationship with God. And if you've not taken a step into that yet, this is a really fun way to do that, because it does open your heart and mind to listening to God.
Heart and mind.
I really didn't mean that, but yes.
For those who may or may not be tuning in for the first time, I pointed that out because Brooke's coaching practice is called Blueprint Heart and Mind Coaching. That's my plug. So carry on.
No, it's just funny that that was just what I was saying. You were the one that picked up on that. I wasn't even thinking it. So thanks for the plug. I appreciate it. These are my receiving hands, Lord. But if you haven't tried a conversational relationship with God yet and you want to, this is a really fun way to do it. It's pretty low pressure because there's no expectation. There's no problem to solve. We're not asking God for this serious thing that we need to figure out, where do I go or what do I do? It's what do you have for me? And it's a nice way. And even if you do have a conversational relationship with God, it's a nice way to practice dependence on him, because we've talked about that before, that we believe we're supposed to be independent, but it's actually supposed to be interdependence of us relying on God for everything. Asking him for a word for the year has just so many positives, so many good things all wrapped up in it.
I feel like it also restores your connection. especially after the holidays and it's so busy. Maybe you still even kept up with your daily readings and stuff, but something feels like it's off and it's missing. Having this time to focus on, God, what do you want from me for 2026? You're starting to restore that connection. You're getting back with him. It's inviting him into that space again, which is what he wants to do anyway. He wants to do this stuff with us, not us doing it on our own and being like, here, God, is this good enough? Is this okay?
I'm realizing that another thing that I don't really like about resolutions is that it feels like homework. It feels like somebody gave me an assignment and I have to do it.
Yeah.
And I don't like that feeling.
You're adding it to your task list, your reminders, your...
Yeah, it's about productivity and striving, and I have to get this done. And that saying those words, I have this internal feeling of, ugh, it feels weighty and not in a good way. It feels like there's stuff on my shoulders
or if you don't have one, then maybe you'll feel like you're lazy.
Yes.
Right? That's the other side of it.
See, it's accusation all around.
Know,
yeah,
guys.
so I like that a word for the year versus a resolution, it shifts things from what do I need to do to who do you say that I am, God? Or who have you already said that I am, and what is the becoming process like? Because God will often tell you things about you that feel like too good to be true. And the idea is that is already true about us, but it's the becoming process is what we're feeling that hesitation about. And so that's what asking for a word for the year does. It takes the focus off of performance and behavior and what do I need to do, and it speaks far more to who God already says I am and my growth process through connection with him to become that.
So it's not self-improvement, it's spiritual formation. Weren't we talking the other day about what you end up telling yourselves is what you believe? Mm-hmm. That's how our brain really works that way. It believes what we tell it, and then we add the experience to it. Shifting from this whole self-improvement thing because who we are right now isn't good enough, which is what we're ultimately telling ourselves when we do these kinds of things, to a whole transformation or spiritual formation. It shifts that entirely, and it puts you in a better space to receive and to become that. You know, like we're getting rid of that negative energy that's taking up that space in us, whether that's anxiety, however that ends up showing up for us. And we're choosing to put that off and seeing what God really has to say about it. And it's not something that we add on a to-do list every day. We're going to have to read 3 scriptures every single day, and then we'll rest on this day. And no. Toss your schedules. I know some of us love schedules or organize things, and I'm one of those people now. I like to have things super detailed so I can have some kind of a framework, but that's not what this is. We'll get into a little bit later in the episode too about maybe that word doesn't even come to you until June. Because that's a thing too. Yep. So hang here with us. We're going to get to that.
I've noticed too that the people who are encouraging a lot of making resolutions are gyms, because they want you to buy a membership, diet programs. Mm-hmm. It's always something about how you look physically. And here, lo and behold, I have a product that will make that thing that you don't like about you even better. It's getting us not only the mental attitude of I am lacking somehow, but now I have to invest a whole lot of money to change this thing about me. Mm-hmm. Shady. That's shady.
It is. And we're always looking for that
quick fix.
Mm-hmm. And we all understand why that's not a good thing. But just in case, I'm going to revisit that real quick. When we do something drastic, we haven't learned much from it. We're going to get right back to that same space. We're yo-yoing, and then that becomes a very negative cycle for us too, because it's like, okay, great, we finally got it, but oh no, now we're back to where we were before, and now we feel bad about ourselves. And so this whole thing is a journey, and be patient with the process and be good with the process, because it will take time. It took time to get to where we were in that space anyway. So let's do a complete restoration with God, not on our own.
Yeah, and if God is talking to you about your physical health and you feel like, oh, maybe I should try a gym membership, that's different than you deciding. If you check in with God and he's like, let's explore your physical health and you taking better care of yourself, because God does care about our physical health too. He made the entire human, but it's more about mindset, perspective. Am I deciding all of this for myself and I have a plan and I'm going to fix these things that I think are wrong with me? Or am I inviting God to speak and shine a light on some things and follow whatever it is that he has for us? So we've talked about the idea of word for the year, but we've definitely not given you any examples. And if you've never done this before and you have no framework for this, the conversation up to this point may have felt a little confusing, because you might be thinking, what do you mean word for the year? That's quite literally what we mean. So to give you an idea, not necessarily on January 1st, but toward the beginning of the new year, my husband and I usually will sit down, whether it's together or separately, but we'll invite God to reveal whatever the focus is. And so it's not so much about, is it one word? Is it scripture? Is it a phrase? There's no right way. There's no wrong way to do this. It's more, what do you have for me this year? And sometimes he does give me a single word. Sometimes he has given me a phrase, but it's not so much that it's a specific word or that it has to be a 2-word phrase. It's not so much that. It's more his guidance and tuning into him and inviting him in to kind of set direction for the year, because there's nothing wrong with us wanting certain things and setting goals if that's something that motivates you. But again, if it's all coming from, it's all on me and I have to, that changes the direction. And so bring those goals that you have, bring whatever that is, and invite God into it. But it can be single words, it can be phrases. And I've not yet asked God for my word for 2026, but my word for 2025 was flourish. And I have to tell you, when he first told me that word, I was a little uncomfortable, because what I understood that word to mean was like when somebody does something like with a flourish, it felt like showing off. It felt like drawing attention to myself, and I really don't like that. That makes me very uncomfortable. But this is another thing about asking God for a word for the year, is ask him what he means by the word. Invite him further in. Have a longer conversation. Don't just take whatever he says and then you're off and running, because that's still then you doing it. That's still you planning and you deciding. So I sat there for a little bit and I was like, Lord, this is making me a little uncomfortable. I don't know how I feel about this word. Can you say more about it? And he did say more in that conversation, but then I continued to ask him, and I checked in with him at several different times in the year about, is there more that you want to say? Is there more you want to draw attention to? Is there something that I've not seen that you want to reveal to me now? And so it's not just at the beginning of the year. Allow him to have the space and time to show you more and more and more what he means by that word. And so he eventually told me that it wasn't what I thought. It wasn't showing off. It wasn't drawing attention to myself. The metaphor that he used, which again, he knows exactly how to speak to each of us, but he used a farming and a gardening type of metaphor with me. You have to prepare the ground. You have to plant seed. You have to water the ground. You have to do all of this work so that then your garden grows, whether it's flowers or vegetables or trees or whatever it is that you're intentionally planting and then tending to so that there can be growth. He was showing me that I had put in the work that he had asked me to do, and now it was time to let things blossom and let things grow to fruition. And that was such a fun thing to receive at the beginning of the year, and to then watch him show me how that was working and what he meant by that all throughout 2025.
Before I get into 2025's word, 2024's word was intentional. And if you've been around me long enough, that's my favorite word. And every time someone says it, I light up. And I didn't fully know what that meant or what it was going to look like for the year. I didn't have a framework or a process for what having a word meant. I just knew that I wanted to focus on something, and like, God, what do you want me to focus on? And this is a word. If you can imagine just one word just lighting up for you, that's what it was for me, intentionality. And so throughout the entire year, I wanted to be intentional about my faith. That was the big one that I knew that step forward was going to be for my faith. But also I, throughout the year, was able to see where I wasn't intentional about things and how passive I've been about most of my life, really. More on the defense, and it's more like things would come my way, like obstacles, for example. And I said, all right, so this is how we're doing life now. And I'm playing more of a defense on my life than I am on the offense, being intentional. That changed a lot for me also in how I was viewing my relationships. And I want to be more intentional about my faith. And so I was looking to be in community with others that were doing the same. I say I believe something. I want to put my money where my mouth is. You know, I want that the way I live my life to match what it is that I truly believe, but also what do I believe? Like, let's figure that out. 2024 was a lot of fun to do that. And I'm serious. That's not a sarcastic way of saying that. It's so much fun. I talked about that word so much that's why everybody knows that about me. And I still talk about it. It's still very important to me. And so 2025, I was like, well, as much as I love intentionality, and that's something that's going to, be important forever, really. Well, I can't do that again. So what are we doing this year? And so my word was cultivate.
Nice.
I had cultivate for 2025. And that word isn't even something that I used in my vocabulary regularly. I mean, I more or less understood what it meant. And I don't know how to cultivate what I'm learning. I guess maybe that'll just happen. Here's the thing is I didn't have the language for all of this, right? But I am in constant connection with God about things, and I'm praying about things. So you don't need to understand the language or the framework to still go ahead and step forward into what God is calling you to do or asking of you. And so here I am. I don't know how I'm supposed to cultivate things, but I don't know. I guess we'll see. And I felt sometimes I was still leaning on intentionality, but here I am doing life, right? And so I'm getting into my rhythms for what I know God is asking me to do and being faithful to things, even if some days they feel like more routine than not. But I'm so into this. I'm so invested in it. And that by probably halfway or 3/4 into the year, I'm realizing, oh, I cultivated. Oh, and so it's funny. And God's like, yeah, because it's not something that I was supposed to do by myself anyway. I was never, ever supposed to do this on my own. And I'm the one that has to figure this out. And I'm the one that's driving this. We're doing it together. And so even though I didn't really understand what a process could look like for cultivating, my constant connection with God and what are we doing next and what are we doing here, all those different rhythms that I ended up getting into, I see the fruits of that labor towards the end of the year. There's seeds that I've been planting at the beginning of the year, and I'm only now seeing some things coming up from it. And we always want to see stuff right away. We're not going to see things right away. And so I see it coming up, and it's, wow, that's really neat. It's one thing to know that God's coming through for you. It's another thing to finally see it. Knowing is one thing, and having the confirmation is another. And so it's so much more exciting and encouraging. And it makes me laugh because, again, that's not a word that I used in my vocabulary. I more or less understood what it meant. And I don't know how I'm going to do this year if I don't even understand the word. But obviously he didn't need me to understand it, because he's like, that's all right, keep doing what I'm telling you to do. And I'm like, okay. And then sure enough, at the end of the year, I'm like, oh man, I cultivated. What?
Yeah. I love that you brought that up, because that's the thing. We could get a word, and then I said we can start going, okay, now I guess I have to figure out the plan. And no, you don't. God actually wants you to stay connected to him. And so he might give you a word that you're, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I had to look up the definition, you guys.
Yeah. Yeah, because he wants to show you how to carry things out. And not that it's now all of a sudden about behavior, but he's setting a direction, whether it's for your spiritual growth, for whatever it is, but he's setting the tone for the conversation. And you don't have to now turn to relying on yourself. Keep him at the center. Keep asking him questions. Keep asking him for more revelation of, what do you mean when you say this word for me? What does it look like at this point in the year? And then 3 months later, what does it look like now? And I love that you said that, because it's fun when he does stuff like that, where he gives us a word that we might have somewhat of an understanding, but what does this mean for me? And how is this going to look? And I think he does that sometimes purposely, because then we can't take it and start running and planning and figuring things out for ourselves. It is that interdependence. We should be relying on him, and he's like, hey, I'm going to give you a word that now you're going to have to rely on me, because you can't figure it out for yourself.
Yeah, I remember some conversations. I was like a few months in, I'm like, oh man, I was supposed to cultivate this year. Like, am I cultivating? It's been fun this past year.
In the year before, he gave me a 2-word phrase. He gave me wonder and delight. And that sounded fun. I was like, okay, I'm all about that. But it was interesting that what I didn't know that he was doing, because it was at the beginning of 2024, was that was the year that I was putting in a lot of work. And I didn't know that was going to be my 2024. And he gave me those 2 words as kind of a a reminder, an anchor of while you're basically tilling the ground to prepare for planting, also remember that there is room for wonder and delight. It's not all a slog. It's not all work and hard things. It's, yes, we're working, but also keep wonder and delight at the center. And what's really cool is the year that, and again, he gave me the word at the beginning of the year, and I didn't know until a couple of months later that I was going to officially launch my coaching practice. But the year I did that, the word that he gave me was dream. And he was inviting me to dream with him about what could this look like? What could we do together? How is this, like, what is this going to bring about, not only for me, but for the people that I meet with? He's so cunning. He's so strategic, and not in a, and now we have to perform sort of way, but he knows exactly what we need. And it's just really so much fun to ask him for a word or a phrase, because he'll show you some pretty amazing things.
The experience is far greater than anything we could have just come up with for ourselves. We should focus on resting. And we came up with that on our own. And now we'll experience some things, and there'll be some positives to it, and there'll be some benefits, but it pales in comparison to what God would have for us. Yeah, I'm getting some word I don't even really know. And 2025 was a lot, and it was great. And no matter what it is that he gives you, whether it feels uncomfortable or maybe you're super psyched and ready for it, you're doing it together. It's going to always be a good experience, and you can trust that you'll make it out to December 31st as he wanted you to. Not our expectations for ourselves for where we think that word should have taken us by the end of the year. No, we're going to be where he wanted us to be, and ready for the next thing. So when you're sitting here trying to ask God for your word, sometimes it's cute, sometimes it's super #Instagrammable, and sometimes it's something like persevere, and you're, God, absolutely not.
Okay, one year he did give me persevere.
Stop.
He did, no, because when I first wrote it down, I wrote down perseverance, because that felt like it was already finished. And he got my attention, and he's like, that's not what I said. I was like, okay, what did you say? He said, persevere. It's a verb. It's an action. It's, you have to do it. And I was like, because it was already, he gave me that word at a time that it was already, I already felt like I had done some persevering. Can we be done with this? Can I move on to some, can my word be abundance or $1 million or something? These are my receiving hands, Lord. No, it was persevere. And I was like, no. I don't want that word. But thankfully, I was already far enough into a relationship with him that I wasn't jumping up and down excited about it. I was like, okay, Lord, what do you want to show me? That year was something. But he gave me that word as a glimpse, and he also talked to me about how I had already been persevering, and that what I was going to need to continue to persevere through was not beyond my ability, but it was all stay connected to me. You absolutely are going to persevere through this. It ended up feeling encouraging, like he was cheering me on, but you got to stay connected to me.
I'm picturing Jesus in the back like, E. E.
That's a long cheer. That's a long word.
But he's capable. It was probably a super catchy cheer.
Yeah, that's funny though. Yeah, I did. When you said it, I was like, oh, that was one of my words. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I wasn't real thrilled with it. So we're bringing that up because if you hear a word that isn't all happy and warm fuzzy and that sounds exciting, it could be something that feels like, oh no, I don't want this word. But again, stick with it. Ask him more questions. See what he has to say. Check in with him, because he's not going to give you something that is beyond you if you stick with him.
And that isn't ultimately good.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that you said about your connection, because how easy could it be if you're not feeling that connected to him, and then you hear something like that and you're like, oh, no, we want something like abundance. Do that one instead, God. We're going to do that instead. Because it is scary. You think, oh man, all these bad things are going to happen, but you're not alone through any of it. You're coming out good at the end of it. Thanks for sharing that. I didn't see that one coming. love that you persevered, though.
Thank you so much. So you might be wondering, how do you actually go about asking God for a word for the year? If you already have a conversational relationship with him, just ask him. Dive right in. Lord, what do you have for me this year? Do you have a word? Do you have a phrase? What do you got? And if you don't already have a conversational relationship with him, you can try that. Absolutely. But if you do, whether you have one or not, if you already are well into a conversation with God, it might feel like I asked and I didn't hear anything. And that's okay. Like Denise said, you might get this word well into the year. It's not a guarantee that it happens at the very beginning of January. It took me one time into, and I know some people might be like, this isn't very long, but it was into February before I felt like I got my word. And usually I get it pretty quick. So whatever the timeline is, that's okay. Stick with it and continue asking him. If you don't already have a conversational relationship with him, you can go about it different ways. If you are a journaler, you know, I'm a big fan of that. You can start writing down the thoughts that are coming to your mind and then sit with those. And you can even then say, God, are some of these things, are you highlighting these things? Did you bring these to mind for a specific reason? Is there something here that you're trying to point out to me? Because I find that starting to write my thoughts, it sounds strange, but it gets me out of my head enough. It gets me not focused on, am I doing this the right way? That it leaves space then for God to speak. And I don't mean audible voice, his spirit and your spirit. Don't put pressure on yourself to, I have to get a word for the year. That's going to shut down any openness and communication. So this is not, you don't have to make anything happen. Remember, these are my receiving hands. You are in a posture of receiving, and let him, if you're not watching, you're missing it. You be in a posture of receiving and let God bring whatever it is that he has for you. Questions like, where have I been striving? Because very often you'll find that the word that God wants to give you it's in direct opposition to something that you think you have to provide for yourself or strive or make happen. Or it can be something that you're feeling very discouraged about, and he will give you a word that is more encouraging, like that year that mine was wonder and delight. And even persevere turned into encouragement. And so you can ask things like, what is something I'm overly focused on? Because he might want to give you something in direct opposition to what you have been striving to make happen for yourself. Sometimes it's as simple as, what's a truth that I need to hear from you, God? And that can become your word for the year. It's between you and God. No one's going to go, well, no, that's not your word. Mm-hmm. You heard wrong. This is entirely up to you. But other than with my husband, I do not often share my word for the year until far later in that year. Not because I want to keep it a secret and nobody's allowed to know, but it's more, this is between me and God, and I want to see what he does with it. And well-intentioned people are going to say things about your word or ask you, hey, how's that going while you're in that? Then that creates pressure that they're not intending and you're not necessarily intending. But that's something that I've chosen to do, is not necessarily broadcast that this is my word for the year, because it's an intimate thing between God and me. And so nobody else needs to know what your word is. And so there's no sense of, maybe I got it wrong. Because if you hear a word and then 3 months later it feels like God gives you a different one, go with it. Because he knows what he's doing. He knows the things that you need to hear from him that are going to be most encouraging to you. There's no, this is exactly how you do this and you have to get it right. Take that pressure off of yourself. If it's something, what do I want for this year? What are my hopes and dreams for this year? Bring those to God. And I feel like it happens often is I'm feeling like I'm not hearing from him. And so I bring something to the conversation. It's almost like somebody takes a highlighter and highlights a word in my mind or shines a light on. It's like there's some sort of drawing attention to it. And I'd go with it and assume that that's him if I'm not hearing super clearly that it absolutely is him.
I would like to add a few more to that.
Yeah.
So I feel like I hear God the most when I'm going on a walk, or when I am on a walk, because I go for walks often. And so I would like to offer that up also, like prayer, first and foremost. And prayer can look like a lot of different ways. You can have a prayer walk. And so walking and give it time. You mentioned giving space for God to talk. And I want to reemphasize that again, because a lot of times we want to ask and then we keep talking, we keep filling that space with words. And I don't know if that's because maybe we don't think that he's going to actually answer us or we're nervous. Spend some time there if that's what's happening, but give him time to answer. Give that silence some time, meditate on it. Or give him time to answer in the span of months. You know, it may not be right there in that moment when you're asking him. He could be revealing that to you through other things, through conversations or experiences, situations, but definitely give him time and be open to hearing and receiving that information. So if we're not believing that he can give that to us, then we're probably not going to hear anything. So we can check ourselves in that aspect. And we've already touched on this, but I want to be a little bit extra more clear on that if we can, on not defining what it is. Like I said that I got cultivate for 2025 and I'm like, I don't know what that means. I thought I did, but I looked it up just in case. But let's not get stuck on, well, it means this. So then that means it needs to look like this. And if it's not looking like this and I'm not doing what God's asking me to do, and then we get in this whole cycle, relax.
Yeah. Be curious about what it is that he wants to show you. Yeah.
Go with it.
Yeah.
Let him lead you, whether that's a conversation, into situations with other people, whatever that needs to look like with you guys. Let go of the control of that it needs to look a certain way or you're doing it wrong. Chill. This is between you and God. This is about your growth. It's about your transformation. It's about you becoming who he says you are. Right? Relax, y'all.
And if you've tried all of these things and you're still thinking, okay, that I've given enough time, we're a couple of months into the year, I still don't feel like I've heard anything. A question that I often ask God when I feel like I'm not hearing clearly from him, or maybe I'm not hearing at all. It's not that he's necessarily withholding, but a question that I ask is there something in the way for me to be able to receive what you're trying to show me, say to me? Because there can be sin issues, there can be things I'm believing about myself, things I'm believing about him or the situation that aren't true, but I don't know that because I can't see that for myself. And so that's a question that I've learned to ask when I feel like, seems like there's a block in the communication. So is there something in the way? And you don't have to identify it. You don't have to say, is it this that's in the way? Is it this? Is it just, is there something in the way? And if there is, he will show you that, because he wants the communication to be clear between the two of you as well.
I want to ask you if you can speak a little bit more on sin being in the way, because I know that's not something I always understood. And I get that now, and I get what you mean when you say that. But I think that that's not as common knowledge as we might hope it is. So can you share a little bit more on what you mean about that?
Sure. If it's something that I am actively engaging in that I know God does not want for me, is not the best for me, and I am willfully choosing that, then think about that in any other context of any other relationship. If I am doing something that I know is hurtful to my husband, the connection between my husband and me is going to suffer greatly. And so if I am willfully choosing something that God says, hey, this is not what's best for you, this is not what's best for our relationship, then my relationship with him is going to suffer. And so if it's something that I know, this is not what God has for me, this is not his best for me, but I'm choosing that over him anyway, of course that's going to affect my connection with him.
Mm-hmm. And if hearing him at all.
Yeah.
For sure. Cool. Thanks.
Sure.
Okay, so choosing a word, right?
Hang on a second. Because it's not choosing, it's asking God for it.
Oh, thank you. Mm-hmm. Asking God for a word, you guys. It's not just us. We're not coming up with this on our own.
Yeah.
I want to touch on this whole process that we're discussing on that and what it is and what it isn't. We don't want you to misunderstand what we're saying. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, this isn't something that's like prophetic, fortune-telling cookie kind of a thing for how your life is going to go. This isn't like, ooh, God, spill the beans on things. This is the next road you're going to go down on your journey. So I want to make sure that we're not misusing what this is and its intended purpose. It's not a magic word that fixes your struggles as much as we'd like it to be. Maybe in the long run with our lessons learned, there's definitely some value there, but that's not first and foremost what this is. It's also not a daily replacement for the spiritual rhythms that we're doing. Nothing is here to replace what God's already established for you to be doing.
Yeah, I feel like that it can actually help that along, because now you have something that you can continue to ask about throughout the rest of the year. Not that it's the only thing you ask about, but like I said, I check in with God throughout the year and ask him, is there more you want to reveal to me about this word? So it's not that I get this word and then I never check in with him about anything ever again for the rest of the year. It actually it's the opposite. It encourages me to stay tuned in and connected to him.
Do you want to share a little bit about what it actually is?
Yes, it was funny that you started to say the word that you choose, and it's not that. It's not us choosing a word, because that's too much in line with resolution. And so I just wanted to make sure that was one of those things we weren't accidentally miscommunicating. So it does help you to stay connected and continue to check in throughout the year. It's a helpful way to begin a conversational relationship with God, because you're listening, you're receiving, and if you already have one, it's another level. It can take you to a deeper connection with God. So it's a posture of listening. In some of the examples I gave of the words that God gave me in different years, it's a way it's an anchor. It keeps you focused on him. It's very steadying. It brings a sense of peace and calm when you get a word from him. I haven't shared all of the words that he's ever given me, but when things started to feel out of control, not that I'm trying to maintain control, but when situations feel like, what in the world is going on right now, Lord? Sometimes the words that he had given me were kind of like lighthouses in the fog. It was something that was pointing me back to truth. And so that's another really good reason to ask him for a word that he has for you.
I like it being a yearly recalibration. Let's recalibrate where we were, how we started, because a lot of stuff happens in a year, and it's not like every day was sunshine and rainbows. And even if it was, we could probably use some recalibration, but most likely it was not. And you might be coming up to December 31st, and you're like the Cynthia doll from Rugrats. Your hair is like all the way out. Your hair is fried, and you're on fumes. So it's a nice way to recalibrate, to recenter, to get back in alignment with God. Let's start fresh. Let's start from a full cup.
Oh, because you can't pour from an empty cup.
That's right.
And you'll have to watch earlier episodes to get why we're laughing about that.
So we want to start fresh, and so that everything that we end up doing is from the overflow of that cup. So definitely check that episode out. I forget which one it is, but It's one of the past ones, you guys.
Just go watch all of them.
That's what you should do this year. Re-listen to all these episodes. But I like looking at it that way too. You're replenishing yourself. It gets replenished. And it's a good space to be in, starting fresh with God. What are we doing next? I always feel like a little kid when I think about it like that. I'm like, all right, God, what are we doing this year? I'm a happy child in those conversations. I'm like, is it going to be scary? Oh, you don't want to tell me? We're just going to go. And then it's like, June, God, are we sure? And then we come up to the end of the year and it's like, wow, okay, cool. All right. So yeah, I like looking at it as recalibrating ourselves, getting recalibrated. We were talking about resolutions being more behavior performance based. Can you share a little bit more about living for my identity?
Look at your grin. Sure. I don't want to inadvertently communicate that there's no behavior associated with any of this, but it's not behavior as the focus. When God gives you a word for the year, it is pointing you more toward who he says you are, the truth about your identity in him. There will be things that you do, but it's out of the overflow of who he says you are. And that's different than I have to manufacture, I have to strive, I have to figure out what I need to do. The behaviors will come out of knowing who you are. And that is an entirely different way of walking through life. And so that's another reason why asking God for a word for the year is so centering and recalibrating and anchoring, is because it's a reminder over and over and over again of what he says is true about who you are. And we get so focused on, what do I have to do? What do I need to do? What are people going to think if I don't do? Let's come back to center. And center is, who does God say you are? You'll find that the more you keep whatever the word is that God has given you, the more that you keep it a focus, that it will start to shape how you decide to walk things out in life. It'll shape decisions. It'll shape choices. And
you mean it influences?
It does. To keep it front and center, I write it in my journal. I have a sticky note app on my laptop. And so when I open my computer to start work for the day, one of the first things that pops up is my word for the year, and I keep a running list of the previous words because those don't get erased. For me, they've built and they've added context to the newer word, whatever this year's word is, it'll start to play a significant role. It's not just, well, this was a lovely word that God said back in January. You'll see it start to play out in different areas, which is really fun to see how God's going to do that for you. When you start to actually believe that these things are true about you, that's another really fun thing, is to watch how the behaviors in you start to change, that they start to align with God's truth about you. And it's not so much about, is this a bad behavior? Is this a wrong behavior? It just comes naturally because you are so tuned in to him and to believing what he says is true about you. Things start to shift in ways that there's no other way for them to shift. It's just so much fun, guys. You really should try this. I highly recommend.
I'm a huge fan of identity conversations. If you haven't noticed, I always want to bring it up, I feel like, because I've struggled so much with it. And all of it has been so helpful for me. And I hope it's helpful for you guys when we do talk about it. I wanted to reiterate that it's not a task, it's a truth. Let's not turn this into something else that we add on our daily to-do list. Maybe something to consider too while this is processing and you're having these conversations with God is what lies compete with this word. What can we identify about things that we believed about ourselves or circumstances, but identify what those lies could be. Be mindful of that so we don't fall into the trap of going back and believing them. So what are some things we can do once we've received this word? So we're ready to roll. We want to, boom, go out and live this new truth and tell everybody about it. Hang on, guys, hang on. So one of the things Brooke was saying that she has a sticky note on her laptop, I think that's awesome. Get some lipstick and put on your mirror if you want. Or if you don't have lipstick, borrow one of your girlfriend's lipsticks and then put that on your mirror. Whatever reminders you need, where it's visible, because what we see, it'll be at the forefront of our minds, and then we can constantly be mindful of it and be more intentional about it. Another good one is looking for scripture. So once you've heard what God is talking about, let's find the scripture in the Bible that talks about it and that we can look on when we're having moments and we want to dig into a little bit more. What could God be trying to tell us? We can pray through it weekly. We can pray every day if you want. The whole constant checking in. Keep doing that, because maybe it's a new direction that God is going to take you in, or maybe it's the same one even though you want it to shift. Be mindful of that. Keep checking in with God and keep praying. Once we have this word and we start thinking about it often, which then means we're going to live out of what we're thinking, we're going to live differently. Let's keep that in mind when we are asking questions to God, when we're having those discussions. Let it help shape how we talk to him and the questions that we bring up to him. So I know we've been giving resolutions a lot of slack, and please don't send us emails about how resolutions aren't bad. Look, that's not what we were trying to say, okay? We're trying to offer you something different that's worked for us, at least for sure. And I've only done it for 2 years. This is going to be year 3 for me. But it's far more transformational. We get more out of it. It's something that we're doing with God. It's not something that we're doing on our own. So please don't hear us saying that resolutions are bad, because that's not what we were saying. So I want to give that little disclaimer. Okay. Please don't sue us.
Oh my gosh. So I said at the beginning that I don't like that phrase, new year, new you, because everything that we need, God has already given to us. It's part of the reason why, because God actually gave me the idea to name my coaching practice Blueprint, because we all have an original design. And so we don't have to go out there looking for ourselves. We don't need to reinvent ourselves. We don't need a new version. What we need to do is excavate the things that have distorted the original design. And asking God for a word for the year is a really good way to start getting back to the original design, who he decided you were when he created you. And so you don't need to become a new person. We don't need a new you. We need the you that God decided you are, because you are the only you in this world, and that is what the world needs. Well, thank you all for tuning in for our first episode of 2026, and we hope you stick around for more, because we'll be back next week, so we'll see you then.
Bye!
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Prodigal Peas in a Pod.
For more content, please be sure to like, follow, and share.
And you can email us at prodigalpeas@gmail.com.
For more information on Misfit of Creation, you can like and follow me on just about all social medias, to include TikTok. I also have a Facebook community group that you can join. I have an Etsy shop that has a lot of downloadable tools to help strengthen your walk with Christ. There is a Patreon account if you are looking to be a monthly supporter. And I also do an online prayer call once a month. So be sure to follow that to be updated on when the next date is.
You can find more information on my mental and emotional health coaching practice at blueprintheartandmind.com, where you can also access my blog and schedule a session with me. And you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. So, Denise, what's next?
Hey, DJ, spin that track.
I get it now, I need to be myself because a copycat can only do so well. In love with everything that makes me who I am. Don't need a backup plan, I hope they understand that I'm doing better today. I got me a mission, I got some fruition, you down to stay out the way. Can't seek validation from people who hating, I got my mentality straight. Shout out to God, I've been keeping the first, He's been working and paving the way. And now I can guarantee you that's the way to live. Way to live. Promise that's the way to live. Way to live. Promise that's the way to live.
I need a pillow. I need lumbar support. I'm getting old.
If anybody has some lumbar support to send our way, please let us know. Maybe some icy hot. Oh, a little gift basket.
Geritol. Is that